I will call to order the April 23rd regular meeting of the Dayton City Council. Stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. So after reading a statement of the follow-up to the closed city council meeting on April 9th, I have to give this summary. As required by Minnesota Statute Section 1305, Subdivision 3A. City Council met in a closed meeting on April 9, 2024 for the purpose of conducting a performance evaluation of the city administrator, Zach Dowd. The overall conclusion was that Zach has done a good job this past year, and we appreciate his tireless dedication and hard work. During the evaluation and discussion, the council directed Zach to identify some professional goals that he will work on in the coming 12 months, and we will revisit these goals as part of his next performance evaluation. Okay. I need a motion and a second to approve the agenda. There's one consent item.
Yep, so I just need to add a temporary liquor license for 6/14 for a family fun night. The lines are pulling up.
That would be E1. Liquor license. Okay, any others?
Nope.
Okay, I need a motion and a second.
I'll motion with the changes.
I'll second.
Okay, I got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously. Consent agenda, I need a motion and a second. That would be with the amended item.
I'll motion. I'll second.
Okay. Got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I did have two questions.
Okay.
Marty, I don't know if you got a heads up on this one, but on the payment of claims, on page 29, there's a subscription for Fuel Cloud, and I just couldn't picture what that was.
No, that's for our fuel dispensing station at Public Works. That's how all the transactions are done through the cloud. So everybody has it on their phone, and it's that service that we're paying for.
Okay, thanks. The other one was on the Sundance Green 10th edition. Just want to make sure I'm reading it right. It's for one more lot?
You are correct.
That's what it was.
Okay.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah.
You are correct.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, you got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no. Consent's passed unanimously. Open forum. Is anybody here for open forum? Okay, open forum limited to 3 minutes for non-agenda items. State your name and address. No council action will be taken, and items will be referred back to staff. So,
I'm Ron Basara, 3871 121st Circle, Northwest Coon Rapids, Minnesota. I'm with RJ Ryan Construction. We are working on the MTL project on 118th, 18350 118th Avenue. And what I'm here to do is ask for permission to extend our working hours this Thursday, the 25th, to about 11 o'clock at night. We're pouring concrete. We have a 1,200-yard pour, and it's probably going to take us to about 11 o'clock to get it finished. It'll be our last pour in that particular building.
so it's just the one time and the one evening?
Well, we actually have poured 3 other pours. Our first one, we did not come and ask for permission. We have been, I'll call it, blessed with the police department patrolling our project, thank goodness. But anyway, we had talked with the officer, and that officer had put me in contact with Zach, and that's when we learned of this. Zach granted us permission to go forward with a pour that was already scheduled last Thursday. That ended at about 11:30. We poured again today. We'll be done about 8 o'clock. So today is a lot shorter. But I'm thinking with the pour that we have coming up on Thursday, it's probably going to go to 11.
Is there any more after that?
No, we're pretty much poured out of that third building. So we have, out of the 4 buildings on site, this will be the last big pour that we have. Everything else will be outside during regular business hours.
And what was the date you said it was going to be?
Pardon?
The 25th? This
Yeah,
Friday?
this Thursday.
Or Thursday.
This Thursday.
I don't have
Yeah.
a problem.
Mayor and members of council, we typically have working hours from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And when we have any exemptions from those or requests from those, we always have those approved by council just as a formality, so that everyone knows what's happening and it's not just a decision made by staff.
Right.
It's a decision made by council. So I temporarily gave permission in order, and it said if any, resident complaints come in, it's immediately stopped essentially
down.
until council has heard it, but I've heard of nothing, so
Yeah.
just want to provide that information to
I'm good with
council
those
tonight.
terms.
I'll make a motion that we approve the extended working hours for this event and I guess forgiveness for prior events and hopefully you are doing buildings here in the future, you'll come to us sooner.
Mother Nature hasn't been very kind this year with their rain. It takes me a week to dry out every time it rains, so it really has put us behind. So,
Okay, any second?
I'll second.
okay,
Okay,
thank
Matt?
you.
Okay, any more discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. Okay, anybody else for open forum? Anybody online?
Nope.
All right, we will close open forum. Staff consultant council updates, Zach?
Yep, Mayor and Council, I only have one update tonight. That's just a reminder for about a month from now, May 22nd, we have our open house and truck roundup for the city. That'll be at Public Works this year. We are planning on lots of parkings for individuals that join, because last year we ended up going halfway down Zanzibar Lane, and that's quite a walk once you get to, get halfway down there. So, but we look forward to having that event again in just about a month. Council and, like I said, all residents are invited to come out and join us. It's from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. and we'll provide food and fun. So come out and join us. That's all I got.
What's
Thank
the
you.
date?
May 22nd, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Thank you.
Amy?
We have open filing coming up that will start May 21st and go through June 4th. I have published that in the paper like required to. And then absentee or early voting will start June 28th and go through August 12th. And then only other update I have is staff is currently looking for a new website provider. So we're meeting with different providers. Hopefully we can get something that's more user-friendly and easier for residents to use as well.
Are we ever, I know a lot of cities use kind of a standardized URL. Are we going to do that also?
So
We're gonna
that
stick-
is going to be required for all governments to go, because you're talking about getting away from the .com and going to like a
.gov.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well,
Yep.
and, yeah.
Yep,
that's
so,
the rest of it, so.
so the provider that we use, yes, it will be more of a standard template where you don't have to know how to code to be able to update the website. So we're gonna get away from that. And then, yes, we will be switching over. We've requested the domain to be able to go to the .gov.
Okay.
So that will be a change coming as well.
Marty?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just a few items. Update on the wellhead treatment plant. All the slab, rebar, and plumbing and electrical stuff has been installed. The operating slab has been poured. It's curing this week. They're removing some of the shoring system and getting ready to test the basin for any leaks. That'll be in the next week or so. Hydrant flushing is nearly complete. We just got the Champlain area to do. The Water Trails project, I've had a meeting with DNR regarding I've got a meeting scheduled with DNR for May regarding the joint project at the historic village landing. They have approved it to go to the next stage, so there might be some planning to go with that. I met with a DNR hydrologist last week to go over the existing proposals for LC Stevens. He had a couple of concerns, but is generally supportive of the project, so there are a couple of things that we can work our way through. I'm working with the National Park Service to get the $100,000 released to us for the project. Ball fields are being used now for games and practice. This year we're using McNeil, Dayton Elementary, Rivers Bend Park and Diamond Lake Diamonds. We haven't used the last two for a number of years here, so they're getting some use this year. Roads, we're doing crack sealing. Street sweeping was completed today, and a couple of tree trimming projects have been going on just to test out the new boom truck that we took delivery of last week. Just a general thing with the part-time and seasonal opportunities. I've got 2 seasonal interviews this week, and the 2 part-time applicants have been invited to interview, but I haven't got a response from them yet.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. On the next council meeting, May 14th, I will not be in attendance. Myself and the truck committee for the engine tender will be traveling to Packard Motors as to investigate if that motor will be better than our Cummins motors that we've had in our engines, and that was provided with the purchase of our truck. So we'll be going there to ensure that that motor will be a good fit for our needs moving forward.
Paul?
Evening, Mayor and Council. The 2 officers, as their first week in full uniform, riding along with their FTO. So far they've been doing good and meeting our expectations and even exceeding some of them. So that's a good sign. Just busy catching up from being at the conference last week, and we'll get the speed limit signs out here shortly. So if you get any complaints or hear of anywhere that you need them, shoot me an email.
These new signs, or what's up with the speed limit signs?
The radar sign.
The radar signs.
Oh,
are
those.
red. Yep.
All right, yep. John?
Thursday, May 2nd is a council plan commission workshop to discuss the Dayton Parkway master plan. So they'll start at 5.
We will provide dinner. So everyone knows.
Oh, that's at the planning commission?
Yes.
Okay. That it?
Yep.
No updates here.
Okay,
Not for me.
Nothing. I'm good.
we're good?
Nothing for me.
Nothing for me?
All right.
Move this baby along.
All right, new business, item F. Chip and fog seal project.
Click once.
Evening, Mayor and Council. Being a new treatment or a new project in the city, I was just going to take a minute to explain what this project entails, just so there's some awareness on what's actually involved with it. So Dayton's pavement management plan recently adopted identifies crack repair, chip seal, and fog seal as an improvement strategy to maintain the road network throughout the city. Crack repair, folks may or may not know this. It's as simple as cleaning out the existing cracks and then inserting the liquid asphalt material just to seal the cracks such that water can't enter, get in the subsurface and cause some problems under the roadway. I'll continue to say it's the cheapest assurance you can to have extend the life of your roadway. Chip seal is, again, a liquid asphalt, basically an oil that's sprayed on the surface, followed by a truck that puts small diameter rock on it that's angular, and that bonds to the oil, it sticks to the surface, and that helps seal the surface, keep it safe from elements from the sun, creating the pavement to be brittle, and again, letting water enter the surface. It just seals it while also adding skid resistance, which is shown to be a safety benefit as well. A fog seal, and that's what's new to the city. That's I kind of think of it as the lacquer that goes over the top. It's just another layer that goes over the surface. It bonds those rocks in place, so when tires are moving on them, plow trucks going over them, those rocks aren't breaking loose and you're losing them, so it kind of holds everything in place better and really helps keep the performance of that improvement going for an extended period of time. So this year there was 3.9 miles identified to receive this treatment. Segments from future years are being considered to be added to this one, and that's primarily due because the projects we've implemented per the pavement management plan have come in significantly under budget. So to help kind of spread the costs over that time frame of the 5-year plan in the budget, or in the plan, 5-year
spread costs over the 5-year pavement management plan. The thought was to bring some of those forward. Now, it's an easy design project. We can implement it pretty quickly. It's a short duration for construction. So those were the easy ones to pull forward, if you will, to do this year. So we sat down with staff and looked at those identified for both this year as well as the remaining 4 years of the plan. We pulled the ones forward that were best grouped together or made sense, and we basically looked at which areas was the entire neighborhood going to be done anyway. Let's do them all this coming year. And then also let's stick to kind of the main roads, if you will, the collectors that might best benefit from this. So that being said, and I didn't write down the mileage of road involved, but the project cost estimate is about $774,000 for this year. Here's just a list of what's included in it, and depicted on the right in blue are the segments that are proposed to be included in this project. So just to note, the 774 will still remain under the expected expenditure for 2024. So just to note, we're not spending more than would have been previously anticipated.
Jason, do we recall the 152nd project that's happening this year also? That
Yep. Yep. And Thicket Hills Lane.
Thicket Hills also.
Yep.
Do we know how many feet of actual roadway is getting redone?
On those two?
Yeah. And I could have asked this earlier.
It's got to be close to 3/4 of a mile, I would think.
Yeah, I would guess probably a half miles to 2/3 of a mile. I'd have to measure them.
My concern is I don't have a whole lot of faith in chip seal personally, but no, I know we haven't done the fog seal in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any of that out there that we can look at?
Yeah, it won't look any different because it's basically just a clear over-the-top surface. I know we've done a ton of these in the city of New Hope. So New Hope does this annually throughout the entire city. So they're broken into quadrants, and then they have a state aid year. So they go on a 5 to 7 year cycle on their chip seal and fog seal.
The biggest thing with the chip seal thing to me is whatever crack is there this year is going to be right back there next year.
Yeah, it's not intended to get rid of cracks. The seal, or the crack repair, and I failed to mention, the crack repair is actually done in-house, so Public Works does do that work, so I was gonna mention that. Yeah, and it's not a structural improvement. It doesn't give any additional strength. It is preserving the life by keeping the water out, which is a big enemy, especially in the wintertime, and then also just from the elements, the sun and the weathering of the surface can kind of take the oil out, if you will, and it creates kind of a brittle surface.
Well, how much of that is crack seal?
How much of
that cost? Is this just chip and fog?
This is just chip and fog.
So this came up probably about 7-8 years ago, and I dug and dug and dug, and I could not find a single paper. There was a lot of controversy about whether it works or not, but I could not find a single study that said, yes, this definitively works.
So the MnDOT seal coat manual will have the evidence of it and the backing for it. The fog seal, again, it's been experience-based. I know like Cottage Grove does it a ton too. So it has been successful in other communities.
Okay.
There is over my career, I've probably seen it rotate through 2 to 3 times where
They say,
people
yeah,
will be
it works,
anti-seal
and
coat
it
for
don't
a
work.
period of
Yeah.
time because there'll be, with the emulsion process and the underlying pavement, there will be some stripping that occurs or different issues. Now that changes over time because they'll morph their oils or their oil types.
I'm just wondering for that much cost
Pavement.
for, well, wait, you said the 3.9 doesn't include the additional roads you're talking about.
The 3.9 was what was supposed to be,
Right.
and I apologize. I meant to put the actual mileage in here, and I didn't do that. It's significantly more.
Okay.
We pulled a lot of the future years.
I just did some math. If we look at the mill and overlay that we're doing in Thicket Hills and 152nd, that's $45 a foot roughly. This chip and fog seal is $37 a foot.
No, it's
we're doing
significantly less than
3.9 miles.
Correct.
3.9 miles is not the total project, that's not the seven.
It says 3.9 miles.
Yeah, that was originally proposed for 2024. We pulled, and I apologize, I didn't write so the 3.9 was what was supposed to happen, and then we grabbed a whole bunch of future projects and pulled them back, and that's the 700.
And you don't know how many miles that is.
I didn't.
I'm trying to find it here as we speak, so keep talking.
Okay.
I don't know, is it in the, it might be in the staff report.
And were the roads that were pulled in, or, well, any of them, they were based on the road condition study that we just...
Yeah, and again, it's not really a structural improvement, so it's a preservation strategy.
Yeah.
So it's to extend the life. It doesn't really give the structural benefit of it. But, so they actually typically goes on newer roads.
You're trying to keep the water out of the cracks is what you're trying to do.
So that
Out of
would-
the surface entirely,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah, because I was kind of surprised to see Pioneer Trail
Already, right?
on there. That's-
Yeah,
Not only that, with Pioneer, you've semis go down there every single day. You told us one semi is about 117,000 cars or something crazy like that
as
equivalent.
far as the stress to the
The stress of the
underlying
road.
things,
Yeah, and so we're going to do it, and then we're going to run a bunch of semis up and down that road. Same with River Hills. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah.
I agree.
No, well,
Zanzibar's
yeah,
on there,
that
too.
one surprised me. And then this is probably a dumb question, but when you're doing that stretch at Deerwood that we just painted the line on, we're gonna paint that line back on there?
Yep.
Yeah, so it's an additional roughly 4.5 miles.
That's what this would be.
3.9 plus 4.5 would be the total, so what, 8.4?
Yeah.
Okay.
Total miles for the dollar amount.
Okay, did you do the rest of the math for me?
Well, it's
I
gonna,
give you the number, you do the math on that part.
it's gonna cut it about halfway.
That's
So
gonna cut it.
these are unit,
So-
and it's in the pavement management plan. They're unit prices and they're listed in there, and the unit prices are significantly less for this than a mill and over.
So,
Well, it's roughly 20 bucks then, roughly. Well, maybe 18, something like that. 17, 18.
so Zanzibar, we just put that road together not long ago
About 2
either,
or
was
3
that?
years ago.
The south part,
Yep,
And so we're gonna, so,
the north part.
the north part will be
That was
seal
about 3
coated.
years ago.
The north part, oh, that was with Public Works. 2 years after Public Works?
Yeah.
2018.
18 we did it.
Yep.
Okay.
So 5 years ago.
Again, it's a preservation, it's not a restoration.
I know, I'm just trying to figure out if the amount of preservation really saves us. I mean, I don't know.
I don't see a lot of value in it.
It just seems like, it almost seems like I almost need to see more math.
MinDOT used to not do the chip seals. I mean, they
Yeah, and
It
they're
was a waste of
harder on
money
the bigger
years ago.
collectors. A lot of counties go back and forth on it too, because it's typically more effective on the local roads than it is the major collectors. Not always. I mean, it's effective there as well, but
personally more opt to go with the mill and overlay and just bite the bullet.
and we could do that. I mean, this was an added strategy when the pavement management plan was put together. It was agreed upon that this would be a good treatment to include in it because of the lower cost than the other ones and just extending the pavement life. I mean, certainly that could be rerun, eliminating this and say, we're only doing crack repair and just wait until mill and overlay. I mean, that's absolutely an option.
Well, it'd be nice to see what we think this saves us for the lifetime, because if you take that lifetime and amortize it back, it doesn't seem like it would make it, but I don't know.
I guess the question is, does it add a 50% life to it, or does it add 1 year?
Right.
That's kind of that's what you're kind of asking, right? Which I think is
Time do you buy?
yeah, fair question.
Now, crack seal to me is a no-brainer, but because that.
Crack repair, in my mind, should be done every year and
Yeah.
Every year.
Well, that's why we bought the
Yeah, yeah.
equipment
No,
to
I
do it,
agree.
'cause
Yeah.
What do you think, David?
I'm not gonna, I guess I don't doubt that it extends the life. I think that's a fair question to say by how much, and so does it pay back for us? Do we get enough life out of it to make it worth doing? I'm not a civil engineer, I can't make that judgment, I guess. We've committed to improving our roads, and if this is what we need to be doing to do that, I'm on board. I think that we need to move on that plan. We put together essentially a 5-year plan to get us up to a certain score on on conditions. Not clear to me how this exactly plays into that, or if it, do we, for example, the roads that you're going to chip seal does that improve their score? Does it improve our overall score?
It should. It's a small, it's predictive software that does run on the improvement. It bumps it up some, certainly less than a mill and overlay, for example. That will bump it up. I'm kind of making these up, but that might be like a 45-point increase on a 100-point scale to do a mill and overlay, for example, where this is going to be something much less than that. So it basically the how significant the treatment is how much life you buy, more or
Well,
less.
a mill and
Quality.
overlay should give us 10 years in that road, not?
Yeah, I think mill and overlays are generally just on a straight degradation curve, about 7 years of life. So, a pavement structure, it's a 20-year design, just always. You design for 20 years, and then there's certain degradations and certain improvements that bump up your curve as it deteriorates. And generally speaking, if you do the mill and over the seal coats, the crack repair, the seal coats, the mill and overlays, and then potentially a full depth reclamation for certain things, you'll get a 59-year life. That's kind of the flat curve or standard curve, if you will, for the life. So this is one of those components to get you that distance. If you were to forego this and just go to a mill and overlay, you might still get like 55 years of life. You might get 50, you might get 45. It depends on how much water is getting into your subsurface and creating damage, or how many of the elements. If you have boulevard trees, for example, your pavement will last longer. It's because it's shaded. So, there's just a lot of components to it.
Well, as an example, Zanzibar, for instance, was just done 5 years ago. If we take care of the cracks on that for the next 5 years, I cannot see personally that is going to be any worse than, to me, the chip seal and fog seal. How do I word it? I don't see the value in the 5 years because it's not going to last for 5 years for sure. So, to me, if you take care of it for another 5 years and then just go back and mill and overlay it, I see that, to me, the value is in the mill and overlay. That's my personal opinion.
Sure.
What benefit do the chips add to the chip sealing process? Is it just traction?
It helps bond the surface, so it's not as much friction between the oil. The underlying oil is what seals it, and then the rocks just keep separation of the contact with wheels and others to wear that off the surface. So it just extends the life of it,
Another
if you will.
layer
And then
on
the
top.
sealing over the top is what keeps the rocks from knocking loose and creating it. So it's kind of a barrier.
Sure.
There's other alternatives that we discussed with Public Works, and for example, you can do a slurry seal or
Yeah.
there's other treatments, and we ruled most of them out, just being that this one seemed more cost effective and a little more tried and true, if you will.
Marty, coming from the subject matter expert about our roads, do you feel like this is a cost-effective option, or would you just stick with seal coating, like Scott's stating?
I like the chip seal and fog, the chips and fog seal. I think
Yeah.
it does a lot for us. Keeping the rocks on the road is huge in a lot of ways because we get a lot of complaints when we've just done the chip seal before. People complain about them going up in their driveways. I think if we can keep them on the road, it's great. And it will also, with the ploughing, it's going to keep those in place, and we're not going to get caught underneath them and peel it up. I like this product because there's, several places using it who seem to, have had good luck with it. And I think it's something that, if it's adding life to the road further down the line, I think it's a good preventative measure, along with the crack sealing that we're doing.
Oh, thank you.
So we know that the plows are going to do some level of damage, and the sealant is supposed to help keep them glued down a little bit better, the fog seal. How do these things stand up to the sweepers?
Oh, yeah, it won't be
The
affected.
sweeper
by
won't hurt it at all.
Yeah, another with the seal coat and the fog seal helps with this as well, is high temperatures, the underlying oil will start to soften again. We'd get that a lot. Communities I've worked in where we've done a lot of these, where there's a lot of car parking, like parallel parking or others, where they're cranking the wheels in
Oh,
one spot.
sure.
It will, on
Spots.
warm days, it'll actually move the rock around, and this greatly helps with that. I don't know if that specific issue exists many places in Dayton, but it was a big one there. Like, they'd have the city festival and everybody was pulling in and out along the curb lines through
Sure.
neighborhoods, and there was 4-inch black
All
spots
weekend they're
everywhere.
doing that or something like that, yeah, sure.
So I think I'm really torn on this one. When we have the plan, we have the plan because it's supposed to work. I want to follow the plan because it's supposed to work. I prefer a mill and overlay road over the chip seal just for the driving experience personally, and I think it's a nicer way to do it. So I don't know. I was hoping you'd say, oh, there's a study that says this, and this, and you could point us to help with that decision making a little bit more. So I don't know.
I can research that. I mean, I know there's a lot of data out there. MnDOT, like I said, they do publications and a lot of studies on these continuously.
If we table this for 2 weeks, is it going to throw off getting it done this year or not?
I don't think so. So another part of this is it's a pretty temperature specific requirements for the application.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why this is easier to implement, because we really can't even do the project for some time.
Okay.
And to be honest, the design process on these is pretty straightforward. It's pretty simple. It's basically show them the roads that you want done. There's not really any design work other than the material specifications and others. So
there's no engineering costs.
they're very low on this. Finally.
Just point to a map.
I won't say
Just
no.
point to a
I
map.
won't
That's
say no.
$10,000. You put it in the map.
You mean this one's not 38%?
We're a little under that, I think. So no,
I like the
that's an
idea of
option.
tabling it for 2 weeks, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll motion that we table it for 2 weeks just to allow you time to send us, and please don't wait the full 2 weeks. As soon as you find it, send us whatever
The day of.
the data that you have on it. That'd be great. So we have time to
Yeah.
read it, review it, and then ask questions before then. I think that'd be really, for me, that'd be really helpful in making a decision, because I want to stick to the science and not, Matt's gut, because Matt's gut is not a civil engineer. So I'd rather stick to the science, and if you can point us in the direction of the science, I think that it makes sense.
And I'll go to New Hope and take a look.
If you guys want a tour, I can probably arrange one. I mean, if you want to go and meet with the director or anybody out there.
Well, I'm gonna go to New whether anybody else does.
Okay. I mean, they can
I
show
want
you
to.
like different years even.
Yeah.
Oh, they can?
Yeah.
they
We do
had
them very
something.
routinely out there. I used to work there, so we've been doing them since the 90s.
But,
No, I
okay,
haven't been there that long.
well, I guess, I have no doubt that it improves the appearance of the road, and some of it probably makes sense. I guess my question is the extra stuff that it buys, is that worth, is that worth it to get an extra 1, 5, 10 years out of it? I don't know.
I think
Yeah.
that's the question, is how many more years are we expected to get out of the roads by
For this
doing it?
price, it
Right.
seems like.
And
it
like
should be
I
a
said,
lot.
I mean, on the straight degradation curve, it'll show that. I want it,
Yeah.
I'm only guessing when I say it. I want to say it's not a lot. It's like 3 years or something.
3
But
years
when
on
you
a 20?
3 years, it basically stacked on top of that. So again,
Yeah.
but that's a normalized curve for every situation, which none of them are. So
Which
it's-
true.
it's,
Yeah, but that's
it's-
okay. That's-
it's
So
hard.
you're saying
Yeah,
that-
but it's the best info.
You would guess
Yeah,
your judgment would say it'd make a 20-year road a 23-year road.
yeah, it would buy you time with it. Might be
that-
more,
Doesn't, okay.
I'd be surprised if it were any less, but
It's a 15% increase in the road length.
the water is the biggest enemy, so.
Down, I see, that's why, yeah.
Yeah, well, it would be good to see something that kind of lays it out.
We need a second.
for us.
Second.
All those in favor of tabling this for 2 weeks, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. On to G, discussion on ballot question.
Yeah. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. We wanted to have discussion on ballot question. We have Amy Schmidt here who was able to provide us information on the ballot questions, what we needed to have that was provided in the packet. Again, we're here for just taking notes and taking information down. If you have any questions, I'm going to give it off to Amy Schmidt, our attorney, who's going to be able to help us hopefully with the questions and stuff, and then Amy Benting here, who's the election guru.
So it's the Amy show.
Amy Show, that's right.
I don't have a formal presentation prepared, but I'm here to answer your questions. I understand from Zach and Amy that there are a couple, 3, maybe 4 different topics that you all are considering ballot questions for. In the packet, in the agenda packet, there's a list that is not exhaustive, but kind of relevant to what, the city would do. Some of the things that are in the statutory list related to ballot questions apply to cities of the first class, like Minneapolis and St. Paul, so I didn't throw those in there, because why bother? And so the list here is, it's really meant to just sort of give an idea of what you can and can't and must put a ballot question on for a special election. So I'm just here to answer any questions that you might have.
I'm trying to remember what the questions, one of them was parkland,
So part of them,
athletic.
yep, so one of them was related to parks and a larger park complex. One of them was related to a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit in residential areas. One of them was related to
Detachment from Hennepin
form of
County.
government, which was proposed by myself or looked at for myself, and then the other one was
Detachment from Hennepin
detachment from Hennepin County. That's correct. So those are the 4 questions, at least that I can remember, provided over to Amy to get some information back from.
So the questions on there have to drive some sort of action, it looks like. We can't use it as a survey of some kind. It needs to really, we can't say, what are your thoughts on X, Y, Z? It has to be, do you vote in favor of doing this or not, basically, it comes down to.
Essentially, yes.
Okay.
But even at that, it's limited. It's a limited
Yep.
tool that you have. The action, your description of it's not a survey is really the best way to describe it. You can't just put a question on just to take the temperature of residents. I mean, it would be kind of an easy way to do that, but the statutes are pretty clear about the limitations on that. If you put a question on about on the parks question, basically the only way that I find that you could present that to the voters is in the context of, do you approve of the city issuing general obligation debt to fund parks, which is kind of putting the cart before the horse in effect, because as I understand it, you all haven't made decisions about what you might want to use the city resources on and whether you would issue debt or want to in that context. So, there are a couple of negative outcomes that could happen if you were to put that kind of question on the ballot, just to sort of take a temperature. It's a valid question, but I mean, if you are only trying to figure out if people are in favor of it or not, if it fails, because people see it, might read it as, I don't want to pay more taxes, you don't really get their true feelings about what the money would be spent on in a way. It's an action, like you say, and how they want, and I get the impression that you all want to know their feelings about things. So it's a kind of a different, it's
also
separated.
kind of a responsibility thing. So specifically for the parks, we will hear all over the place that, people want parks, except some of us also believe that people don't necessarily want more parks. And to me, the best measure of that is to put it to a vote. And so I thought those were non-binding also.
For issuing debt, that's it.
I mean, the question itself, my understanding was it is not a referendum is not necessarily binding on, my understanding was for cities that it was not necessarily binding.
Petitions aren't binding.
Okay.
But if you were to issue a referendum question, whether voters want you to issue debt for the purpose
Right.
of parks, you can, if it passes and then ultimately the decision is made not to issue debt, that's one thing.
Yep.
But if it passes, or fails for that matter, if it passes, it kind of ties your hands as to what you can use the money for, because it's generally a referendum question on issuing debt is about a specific plan. It's not, it's narrower than just the general question of, do you want more parks or not, yes or no?
You certainly wouldn't go and put the question on there to add, do you want to pay for does the public want to pay for a sports complex? And if they say yes, we wouldn't go and buy a ladder truck.
No, I think what she's saying is we need to build, so let's say for the sports complex or the city park, whatever you want to call it, baseball diamonds, whatever.
Yeah.
We design the whole thing, post the plan, and then we'd say, do you want us to execute this plan? It's going to cost you X amount in taxes. It's too vague to say, do you want a sports complex? Because it's like, well, yeah, but what you see as a sports complex, what I see as a sports complex, what Amy sees as a sports complex could all be different things altogether. And so if we want to do that, we'd have to develop a plan that we were going to execute against and ask people, basically, are you okay executing against this, knowing it's going to cost you $200 more a year, whatever the price is.
Right, and all that's right. And in addition to that, when you put a question on a ballot, it has to be in a specific form. Do you approve of fill in the blank?
Yep.
And, and on like a school referendum question or something like that, it always has to end with answering yes to this question means you'll have a tax increase.
Yeah.
So you need to, the language has to be very specific as to what you are asking the public for.
But, I mean, my problem with what you just said was, so to me, you do want them to get all the information. So it isn't really, to me, it's not really a measure of what they feel. It's a measure of what they value.
Right, but
That's what she's saying. You
I
can't
think
use
what
a
I'm
ballot question to get that.
right. I think what I'm trying to convey is that a referendum question about issuing debt is the only legal mechanism that I find in the statutes that allows a city to ask about parks. And it's a far stretch from where I think you all are, as I understand the situation, of what you're trying to learn from people of, do you value your tax dollars going to a sports complex? I think is that more what you're trying to learn?
Yeah, as far as that question goes, I think that's why we would do it. Yeah, we would say, here's what we're looking at, and here's the up to amount in a bond.
So I don't think that a bond referendum question could be framed around that scenario. I think it does need to be tied to a more specific plan, it needs to be
Project
kind of
or
narrowly
something,
tailored
yeah.
to answer, a specific question of what the debt would be applied to, what you would be getting for your debt.
Yep.
So you can't say, here's an idea that we have going back and forth. Would you support a $30 million? And then do the math and figure out what that is. It's going to cost you this much more for the next 20 years.
Yeah.
Rather than, I have a hard time sending money to an architect or an engineer without even knowing if we're going to do the project.
So, I mean,
I don't want to do a full-fledged plan.
There are ways, right? There are ways to as I say, take the temperature, to kind of get the feeling from residents of what they value, what they want you to spend the city resources on. I think it would be, you can do a community survey. You can do open houses where people come and talk about, the capital improvement plan or things like that, where you have the chance to gather that input. I mean, because with a referendum question of just about any topic, you kind of run the risk of you don't necessarily see the full feeling or expression of the values of the people, because you may have a faction that does a really huge get out the vote no or vote yes, and so
Right.
it's not.
You have the same thing in public meetings too, where you have the people that are absolute on one side or the other that are going to show up.
Exactly.
And to me, yeah.
There's no perfect scientific way to get that, but a ballot question, it's just a really, the legislature just really clamps down on what you can use the ballot for.
So the speed limit question we could ask, though,
I don't know about that. I didn't.
Change this, because that would be an adoption of special laws passed by the, so basically saying implementing a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit in residential areas.
A special law is a special law that's adopted, that is approved by the legislature
Legislature, right.
first.
Yep.
And like.
Cities can
you-
adopt
yeah.
it later.
Well, like you would go and ask, like
Something
a
like
sales
that, yeah.
tax, exactly. You would go and ask the legislature to do this, just for Dayton. It'll only apply to Dayton. They do their thing, they adopt it, and then you all accept it. That's what I mean by special.
Paul's got input on that.
So, thank you.
Go ahead, Paul.
Well, I was just going to say, legislation has already been slated that we can lower our speed limits in residential zones to 25 miles an hour per city, but it has to go through an engineering study. And then it has to be posted beginning and end of every street that you put the mileage on.
All right. So, John, you want to say something?
Yes, just on the parks referendum. So Zach and I did talk to Apple Valley's Park and Rec director. So Apple Valley had passed, I think it was a $73 million bond, a referendum for a bond last year. And so Apple Valley did 2 surveys. The first survey was, what do residents want for parks and trails? And the second survey was, here's what we heard, here's kind of our list of things, do you agree with this list or not? And then based on that list, you had plans and cost estimates that led to the referendum. And so the way the referendum reads is, once again, this is Apple Valley. Shall the city of Apple Valley be authorized to issue its general obligation bonds in an amount not to exceed, there's 2 questions here. So the first is $66.7 million to provide funds for the improvement of the city's park system and facilities, improvements to existing recreational trails and construction of new recreational trails, and the preservation of natural resources, improvements to the Apple Valley Community Center, Senior and Event Center, and the Apple Valley Family Aquatic Center, the Hayes Arena, and the construction of a youth baseball and softball complex.
So like 8 different projects or 9 different projects they got going on?
For, with a very specific amount. So it's, if you vote for this, you're approving bonds. Yes.
Yep, yep, okay.
But that question right there did not say it's going to cost you this much money. It just gave 66 point something.
Right, it's set up to,
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
which means you assume that.
Divided by, the property owners.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so every individual's got to know how many homes are in the city. Or,
Oh, yeah, I would never, yeah, to me, if a question goes on, it's gonna have a median house. It's
Right.
gonna have a per median house
Yeah.
cost, otherwise it's a meaningless number.
Didn't they spend 2.5 years doing research before they put that on there too?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get the idea that, we're not taking a temperature here with these asks, that we gotta be, it's go or no go. And this is the list of stuff we're gonna do if it's a go.
Yep.
Right. And I think,
So that-
I think that, like I said before, I think that is beyond where I think your process has, and your discussions have gone just yet. I think it's premature that you would issue a question like that.
So just to confuse us a bit more,
That's
there
what I do
was a
best.
question around seceding from Hennepin County. That doesn't seem to have as much energy as it did 6 months ago, but I know that it's, it's sort of a Mount Everest climb to get a petition in all of the cities affected and counties and so on,
Yeah.
that to actually put that as a ballot question, yes or no, are we doing this? What I had thought about, trying to ask was, where are the residents of Dayton on this thing? Would they be in favor of us moving this forward? But what I think I'm hearing from you is we can't ask that kind of question.
I don't think I think it would be premature to ask that at this point. I know that when the issue came up initially, there was a memo that was issued that was in your packet, that was written for the Champlin City Council. And and their attorney laid out, and I think I remember telling you that I don't really have much to add to that. It was very thorough. There's a very specific process that has to happen there are a couple of options for how it could happen, but I mean, it's a very specific statutory process, and none of them begin with kind of a, do you want to do this question?
Yeah, and that's unfortunate, I think, because if our own residents aren't in favor of it, then why would we ever pursue it?
Right.
Mhm.
And I
But
think
we
that's
can't
why
ask that.
one of the processes that would bring it forward would be a petition from, from residents. And that would be a petition that would be binding, that could be binding, could compel an action that the council would have to, consider it or accept it, or, that petition would be the expression of whether people just, the city, residents at large support it or not.
So we can take that one off the list. Okay, that's one.
Take them all off the list at this point.
They all sound like they need more work.
Sounds like we need to use a surveying function if we want to get better feel for what people think.
I don't think you get a real good feel, though.
You
To
don't.
me, you're going to get 35 people that'll, it's not a good response deal. To where the ballot deal, everybody's looking at that, just about everybody votes. I mean, they're looking at that ballot and saying, here it is.
How many residents we have, or how many people voted last? I don't know if everyone votes, but
Presidential
yeah.
primary, we can
I
all look
know.
at the turnout, but we're typically in the 80 to 85% turnout rate for
That's
voters.
You're going to get a much bigger opinion on that ballot than you are Survey Monkey, for sure.
But statistically, you don't need to talk to everyone to get an idea of where things are at.
As long as it's not skewed.
Correct. Yes.
If you have an open house, you skewed it.
Well, I'm thinking because Champlin just did a survey of things too, where they paid a party to go out and call a bunch of homes
Sure.
to make sure it was this council, I think, approved the questions, and then they went out and asked the questions, and then they got the results back.
Yeah, that
So I think there's ways that aren't an open house too, that are ways to get
There might be.
a
but
pulse that aren't.
Yep, but I'm guessing that that was also skewed because you have a lot of people who, when they hear survey, click. And it tend to be the same type of people. So now you just skewed. So
Do you have a recommendation of ways to do it
I
without going?
no, I
down-
don't. That's
Yeah,
instance.
that's where,
I mean,
so
this is like
staff would-
everybody looks at it and says, yeah or no, they make a decision, so.
Correct. Yeah, so that's what staff would like to see is some sort of, direction of,
I think there's
what's the best
also-
way to do it? I don't know.
Yeah.
I think there's also the option of a combination of engagement. You could do the open house and you can do a survey. And, the professional groups that do those surveys for cities and, on specific questions, or just your kind of every other year community survey kind of, where they do a laundry list of, how's the city doing kind of questions. They account for that hang-ups and, because it's a randomized selection. They don't send it to everyone in the city. So there's the methodology at least attempts to account for that skewing so that you do get, reasonably reliable data.
Yeah, we could certainly
Hey.
talk to Champlin and see how well they think.
The same company was used by Champlin, Apple Valley, Cottage Grove. They use the same person, they use the same process.
It is. In the previous city that I worked in, we used the same company, so it's scientific. So what they'll do is they'll they'll call a resident and then make an appointment to talk to them for a longer period of time to conduct the survey. So if they say, sorry, I'm not interested in, the company knows what the demographic is of that person, and so they go to the next person that fits the same demographic. So it's it's intended to be very evenly distributed, male, female, different age cohorts, different locations in the city. I couldn't tell you how they get all this information because we don't have that. But it's intended to be as fair and equal
Well, we
as
could certainly
possible.
look at it.
I think we should, because if we can't do them as ballot questions,
That's
the
as good
questions
as we
don't
can
go
get.
away.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we need a motion on anything? Or you
Nope.
guys will get some quotes on what it's going to cost to do it, and then come
We
back
can-
to us and get things moving? Okay.
I know it's not what you wanted to hear, but that's my job.
We're gonna bring us some good news one of these times.
Lawyers.
I know, blame the lawyers. That's what I'm here for.
Item H, garage size and driveway aprons.
So I'll preface this as this might, I think of it as being probably one of the more fun conversations because there's no right or wrong answer. Or I should say there's no wrong answer, it's only whatever you guys come up with is the right one. So, I'm gonna say the premise here is not necessarily that garages are too small in the ordinance, is that what's being built is too small. So, the city code requires a minimum of 440 square feet, so that's roughly, I believe that's 20 by 22. As I'm sure the council is aware, most garages that are being built are 3-car garages, so they're larger than 440 square feet. The issue that I think a lot of residents have is, theoretically, once you fit 3 cars in there, there's not a lot of space for garbage cans, lawnmowers, snow blowers, bicycles, and all the other storage items that you would expect to find in the garage. Which means if you have a third vehicle, that third vehicle ends up in the driveway. So just the general idea of what I'm looking or trying to get some feedback from the council is should there be a minimum garage stall size, so not necessarily garage size. This was discussed by the Planning Commission in April. The commission had extensive discussion and decided that it did not need to be changed. The issue is that people have too much stuff, so it's not necessarily that garages are too small.
To me, this is a government waste of time, really. I mean, why are we telling somebody, hey, it's up to the individual that's buying the house to build the garage however he wants, in my opinion.
So I somewhat agree that it's up to the individual to build the house, but the builder doesn't always give you a choice. And so I'll give you an example. I brought the city a year ago and said we should do something. I've got neighbors that weren't given a choice on a 3-car garage on their lot. They were a 2-car garage.
And you find another builder.
But, okay, and the price point they were looking at and where they wanted to live, it didn't matter if it was a different builder or not. This is what they had an option to. Okay, we live in an HOA. You're not allowed to keep your garbage can and recycling can out front, even if it's screened. It has to be in your garage. You're limited on your shed size if you're allowed a shed, because we allow HOAs that then limit these things. So now you've got people that can't, they have to put their snowblower and their lawnmower somewhere. So a 2-car garage, they're down to 1 car and a 2-car garage.
So indirectly, all you're saying is that the builder needs to allow you to build a bigger garage.
Yeah, so my point was more or less is we should have a garage that is deep enough to fit a pickup truck and should be a 2.5-car minimum. That was my piece. That way
So
you've
you're
got
going to raise the price of the home.
garage space
matter
is some of
what,
the
you're gonna
cheapest
raise the
space you're going to
price.
put in a home. Like the price thing, I heard that at the Planning Commission too. Garage space is the cheapest space you're going to put in a home. And I think, the homes next to us are building 4-car garages right up the street from us. So it's not all homes. It's a limited selection of homes. But then these people have a choice of, well, I park in the driveway, and then people come from out of the city, and they jump out of their cars, and they check to see if you locked your car door. And that's a common thing. It doesn't just happen here. It happens in all cities. Just to be clear, it happened in the neighborhood I lived in Coon Rapids, and my neighbor's car got broken into. And then because they keep their garage door open in their car, they got in the garage. And thankfully there they were detached garages. People weren't getting into homes. So there's a benefit to the city to have enough room to get 2 cars in a garage, especially in a city where the average home has 2.3 people. On average, is about 2 cars.
So a lot of people buy 3 cars because they have 2 cars and they want space.
Yep, that's what we did.
You got a 3-car garage.
Yes.
So okay.
But not all homes have an option for a 3-car garage. And you say, well, adding the garage is going to add space. The homes that have a room for a 3-car garage are usually larger homes. So you're paying more for the physical home because it's larger, plus you get a 3-stall garage. So my point was, having a 2.5 stall garage solves a lot of problems.
So what about these homes that have 1 stall? Are you going to mandate 2.5 for them?
Which home? What do you mean homes that have 1 stall?
Well, I mean, let's say some builder came in and said, and for some reason, let's say it was
On a single family homes I'm talking about.
yeah. Well, are you talking about just a class of home then, or a
Yeah,
certain
just single
price
family
point
homes. Just single family
that it
homes.
has to be at least 2.5? Yeah, I've got no appetite for that.
I'm not dictating
Yeah.
how big a garage somebody's going to have. I mean, that's up to the individual that's buying the house.
Would it be more advantageous for us to go after the storage with the HOA and say hey, you can't tell somebody no for a shed provided they have enough room? Would that, do we have governance to overstep an HOA in a capacity like
I
that?
think we do, but
The HOAs can adopt whatever rules
Yeah,
they
they can say you
want,
can't
but
have-
they enforce
yeah.
those, not the city.
I just can't they can't really get, I mean, I understand that the garages that tend to get built as sort of the standard issue thing are too small, you know, unless you've got a couple of little cars or one, and, you know, people have that choice when they buy the house. I understand they're saying, Matt, that the builders will dictate, you know, this model of home, this is what you get, this is where the bedrooms are, this is, you know, all of that. You know, if it was me, it's, you know, I got stuff. I got to put stuff somewhere. So if somebody says I get a 20 by 21 garage, I'm going to keep walking. That's not going to work for me. And so us dictating that size, it seems unnecessary to me. People need to manage their stuff, and you know, if you need more space, then you shouldn't have bought that house.
But you know what? To Matt's point, though, I will grant you that it's not a free market. The builders do dictate pretty much everything.
I don't think it'd be as big of an issue if we didn't, if a lot of, I'm going to say almost every new development that goes in has an HOA. Not all of them, but almost all of them do.
Yeah.
And they don't allow outside storage. I haven't seen one. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know if yours does, John, but allow outside storage of garbage and recycling and those kind of things. Like, you have to put that somewhere. So by allowing, the city allowing the HOA to go in the first place as part of the building condition, and then the HOA not allowing the recycling and garbage to go outside, you're already.
What do you mean allowing?
Well, we can tell them no HOAs, right?
I don't. How would we do that?
When they build the development.
Yeah, so mayor, council, so part of the development or part of the platting process, they would ask to have a HOA in that development. We could tell them you can't have an HOA in that development.
Why? So I know we do that. I'm
We
wondering
can.
why.
Why would we?
Well, here's the other deal. Let's say they don't say anything about that, and 6 months later, they both have an HOA.
Yep.
I mean, I don't understand how we have a say in that at all.
Yeah, so we would have it as part of the DA, we could say that no HOA is allowed in this development. However, if we don't say anything, then there's no yes or no. It's
But
just,
even if we did say that, 6 months down the road, it seems like the owners, all the people could vote. I mean, it wouldn't be for a whole area. It would be for whatever homes decided to do that. But it just seems like,
yeah, I don't know how it would be I don't know how they would. I get your question is that if we say no, you can't, and then all the homeowners want to say yes, we want one.
Yeah, or-
how do we stop them?
I find it
would be
hard to-
part of
Or
the,
let's say-
yeah, they would challenge the DA that was done with the original development. They would challenge that or basically sue
or let's
us
say
as the DA.
we did somehow allow them to have an HOA, and 6 months after that, they voted to
That
dump
happens,
the
that
HOA.
happens often. And then that's on us to now maintain all of those facilities.
I don't know. I feel for people who were in an HOA, but I'm not.
So I do want to provide a little background. So we do currently monitor and say you have to have 440 square feet. So we do have a minimum out there.
Yeah.
I mean, no builder can come in currently and say they want to put a one-car garage in unless they're going to make that one-car garage 20-some feet deep or something to make it 440 square
huge.
feet. So
Yeah.
we do monitor that. So I want to make sure everyone's clear on that. And the second one is, so I'll provide an example that I received from a complaint from is that somebody was building a home. They didn't look at the size of the garage because they were worried about the kitchen and the dining room and other stuff. Then they moved into the house, and then they realized that the HOA doesn't allow them to have the garbage cans outside. So they called us saying, "How do we fix this? We can't do anything." So I think we went to we ended up having to get them a smaller recycling can so they could put it in front of their car to make them fit their car and in the garage with the recycling can. And that's just, again, that's one example, and that was about a year and a half ago. I received that complaint, and they said that that's really dumb, and what can I do to fix that? I said there's nothing I could do. So the problem is that people don't pay attention to garage sizes when they're building homes. That's just true across all statements. I've heard it more than once. They don't pay attention to that because they're worried about the kitchen and the bedrooms and what is the paint color and what's the carpet going to look like and whatever else. And the last thing to look at is the garage size. If it has 3-stall garage, no problem. But if it's the ones that have 2-stall garages that we're looking at, which would be like across the street with the Pines, where it only is able to get a 2-stall garage in widthwise on the lot that it's there. So we'd want to make sure, and this is part of I think my point would be, we want to make sure the square footage works, not because we want to make it certain width-wise, but so that they can able to park 2 vehicles with something in there. And again, I don't think it's a huge increase from 440 square feet, at least from my perspective, but it's enough to be able to put a snowblower or a lawnmower in front of your vehicle when you have a full-size pickup. where you put the full-size pickup with a crew cab and a short box in there. It goes from the front all the way to the back of the garage. And then you have to open the garage door just to get into your car. So, this, like I said, that's from personally what I've heard from residents as complaints. And I personally don't see it as a width and length thing, but more like biggest square feet of, okay, if you can't go width-wise, you need to go at least deep-wise so we can fit something in there additional on top of your vehicle. But that's from my perspective as city admin, not as, resident or builder myself, so.
We got some builder input up here also, if we want to hear it.
Sure.
You want to
Bring 'em
speak to
up.
this?
Sure.
You're more
Bring
than
'em up.
welcome. Come on up. Come on up, Tom.
Yeah, the other issue.
I want to
me
make
is
sure
this-
everyone knows he's not technically a builder.
Right.
Wait a
Oh,
Used to be.
not today.
So, I think, personally, I wouldn't disagree on garage size, on maybe just on depth. But I think the idea of not having an HOA, the reason to have an HOA, I think in general, is just to protect everybody's value, so you don't have somebody leaving everything outside, right? And now you got the guy with the junk in the neighborhood, and now they're calling the city saying, hey, there is an ordinance, but, somebody comes by, tells them to clean it up, next thing, I think that's one of the reasons to put an HOA in, just say your single-family developments. The other than the HOA not to have it, if you have, say, the townhomes and that where all the yards are maintained,
Yeah.
the HOA is
That
made
makes
to do
sense,
that.
yeah.
And the
Or
problem
the
is, those are
smaller.
usually the ones with the smaller garage, not the regular single-family homes.
Yeah, how
that
big
they
a
could
garage,
accept.
so the townhomes, we
They're not
require
440,
doubling
are
those?
So it's a minimum of 440 square feet in the
Same,
medium
okay.
density. Yep,
So,
that's correct.
So,
but I would say
Huh.
it's true, the depth, that's 22 feet, right? So unless you have a small car and you put your garbage cans in front, then all of a sudden, is it 480 and you go 24 feet and you get a truck in? That's a decision, you could argue, right? Usually we figure $50 a square foot to build a garage, so do the math, it does add up. People, so that's why you see all these mini storage places going up everywhere where you never didn't see them before. But I do think the HOA is generally looked, I think some cities really like to have them in all developments because it's a way the neighborhood polices itself
Yeah.
versus the city having to police it.
Yeah, I hear more complaints about HOAs than,
In general, if you don't have a associated yard, like we'll pick, for instance, Edgewater project or as Island Gardens here, Lenart, that doesn't have an HOA. So, but,
And then I know we all know you, but just for the record.
Oh,
can we
yeah,
have-
Yeah.
name and,
Tom Dehn, 11261 Fernbrook Lane.
Thank you.
But, so I, whatever you do on the garage, I think, for me, I'm not moving in a house with a 22-foot deep garage.
Right.
But I think the HOA is, that or look at what you do on the ordinance for the exterior of the home and how much the city wants to police. I think that's the trade-off.
And to be clear, my point wasn't to get rid of HOAs. My point was more the HOAs that are in the cities, almost all of them require that the garbage recycling go in the garage. But there's no place to put the garbage recycling in the garage, you have to park outside.
I,
Right.
yep.
So-
And to me, that seems, the garbage can seems petty. But I guess some people look at them and see ugly.
My neighbor just got a $25 lien put on their home because they kept theirs behind their garage and they didn't get the notification because they don't check their mail regularly. So
Like I
it may
said-
sound petty, but the HOAs go after people for
I know.
it like it's.
I get
And
that.
it's
if
free
you have a
money.
Spot behind, would it be a bad idea behind? I think the idea of just not out, right? Then they
Yeah.
tip over, they blow.
Yeah.
And so,
The bears get in.
All of
I
compost
get it.
at a whole nother level of issue when we have compost bins.
yeah, I don't suppose, they have outside gardens. And then the deal with the shed is, most of the time there's a architectural committee, so if they allow a shed, you can, it has to look certain, so you just start putting up, some plastic enclosure. But it's also then, the city's probably policed a lot where somebody puts it in, and now it's, maybe on a drainage utility easement, and So I think just when they come in big, it just makes it simple to help control some of those issues.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Tom. Any other questions or direction? Basically, this is discussion for direction that we need as staff for if we want to amend any of the code for minimum garage size. If we don't, then that's easy direction and we move forward.
We do not have an ordinance written, so
Yes.
we're looking for direction from the council if to pursue this or not.
Well, basically, you already got an ordinance. If you have a minimum garage size,
Building
that's your ordinance.
Currently, we have the ordinances set for certain districts, R1, R3, and RM. But we do not have them in all districts, and we don't, again, essentially, we have 440 square feet as the minimum.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah, personally, I don't see any reason to
So,
change it.
so right now, if we have somebody that wants to build a home, and hires a builder, they have to, by law, put in a 2-stall.
Yes.
Yes,
At minimum.
at a minimum,
At
that's
minimum,
correct.
yeah.
Yep.
Could they come in and ask for an exception to
They
build
need a
less than?
variance,
that? Yeah.
Through a variance,
They'd
but
have-
and there's no, yeah.
And you have to
there'd be
show
no
some sort of hardship
Yeah.
or type of lot configuration that doesn't allow you to do it wide enough to put 2 cars, essentially. You have to make it 2 cars deep, and then that may look really funny having that.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it doesn't, I don't know.
Park, yeah. No, I'm not,
Sorry, in those certain districts, not, not in all districts, but.
yeah.
So I'll make a motion that we don't increase the minimum garage size in our code. Garage
Yeah, we don't need any motion, just direction.
just
Just
direction.
Just direction, yep.
I'll give direction. I don't feel we need to mandate a larger garage size.
Yeah, that would be mine.
Okay.
I'll third that.
Yeah, it's,
Perfect.
Okay.
Matt?
now do you talk about
Oh,
driveway
you know where I
aprons?
stand. I would increase it a little bit, but that's me.
Okay.
I'm not saying a lot, but I would increase it a little
Well, the other question about that is I don't know what that, I mean, I gotta believe that somebody settled on 440 feet for a reason. And that's probably because a lot of houses are built that way, or,
probably.
I would
and
guess
so
that
now
the-
you're gonna throw a monkey wrench into, 20, 30, 50, 80% of plants
I
out there.
think
I
at
don't
one
know.
time the standard was 22 feet deep in homes. I don't think this code has been amended, this part of the code has been amended for many years. Like,
Right, but what do
so
most houses come out at?
most of them are now probably 20, I don't know, 24 probably to,
No, with
Move
with
22?
the, just because of lot widths and that's where it's really squeezed into that 20 feet. I mean, and it could be, lots change, but that's where I see, if you would see everybody going, I shouldn't say every, majority would go deeper.
yeah, okay, so,
I do think a lot of communities have 440's kind of been a standard. I can tell you that they're all changed, but that width is really shrunk down, and there might be some builders shrinking to 18 and going deeper just because of lot width. You
Sure.
look at a lot of 3 stalls. That 3rd stall is 9 feet, and they got an 8-foot door. You're not driving a pickup truck through it. It's just to store the extra stuff.
sure. Yeah, so, Tom, just make sure we add it for the record, because you weren't at the mic, which is good. Is that the width of the lots, or what's constricting that?
Yeah, I get
Size of the garages, and not more or less what the builder wants
But
to
they
do.
could, I mean, if.
They could make it
if
deeper.
the- If the demand was there,
Yep.
I would think they would want to go.
They could make it deeper, but it sounds like 440 was pretty standard for most communities, that's why it was used.
All right.
To further this discussion along,
Must
I'm
I-
also the same way on the apron. I mean, that the apron doesn't solve the issue.
Well, let's get to the apron. Go ahead.
This doesn't show up very well on the screen. So, the second part of this discussion is, should city code be amended to require concrete aprons? And so just for anyone that doesn't understand, an apron is, I'll say the space between an asphalt driveway and a garage. So typically when a home is constructed, the ground is excavated for footings, and then the footings are poured, and then it's backfilled. Over time, that backfill sinks a little bit, and then it causes your driveway to sink. So for those residents that have asphalt driveways, it's that asphalt that's going to sink, and then you have kind of a dip between, while you're entering the garage. So, in discussion with the planning commission, this went around quite a bit. The planning commission did recommend requiring aprons, and the reason being that it's better than not having one. So, similarly, the problem is caused by the lack of compacting soil during the construction process. Staff-wise, we're not able to enforce that. We just physically, we'd have to be there all during construction. We can't do that. So, you know, I'm going to speak for Jason a little bit. Even if we put in these concrete aprons that are not necessarily, or put in the aprons at the time of construction, there's no guarantee that that's not going to sink itself.
Right.
So ground is still going to settle over time.
Yeah, so I have a question on that. I mean, why, if you're putting in the concrete apron, why isn't it tied to the frost footing and the slab in the garage? I mean,
It's like a sidewalk. I've got one. They continued the sidewalk.
I couldn't answer that.
I don't know that you'd want to tie it. I don't know. But, yeah, mine's not tied and
Mine is.
Pins and what?
Mine is, yeah. Mine is tied into
To
the
the
garage
garage?
concrete, yeah.
Okay.
so they just,
Yeah.
yeah.
But there again, my grandpa built it. Perspective.
Well, and mine
So,
was
I mean,
privately built
I don't
too,
know if
so-
there's a benefit. I also got like an 8-inch pour too, so I mean, I'm much thicker than a lot of other people. So, again, I'm just, what benefit does the apron provide and what problem does it solve? It's the two questions that come up when I'm looking at this. Like, I don't know historically what they were doing, why they were there. But to me, it doesn't seem like concrete apron is the issue. It's what's addressed is that there's compaction issues, which is why it sinks. And I think that's where you start.
So mine, I've seen quite a few driveways like this, and pavement will cave in. Mine did this, and it has not caved in the 15 years I've noticed it. I can walk across that, and I can hear it. It's hollow underneath there.
Yep.
And it has not sunk. But, and that's why at the planning commission I asked them too, if we're just talking about the cost of material, I don't know what the downside is to doing this, because they're there to do the sidewalk and or the garage pad. It seems odd that it's gonna cost that much more to do the skirt, but I don't know.
I would imagine it's all based on timing of when, you know, is the apron poured separately from the sidewalk or any other concrete work. If the truck's there at the same time,
Yeah.
you're just paying for the material.
The sidewalk will be poured when they do the curb and gutter,
Yeah.
way before they do the construction of the home.
But I mean, like the sidewalk from the house to the
Oh, I
street.
see.
Yeah, I'm talking about
Yeah.
the house sidewalk. Because it seems like, again, I can tell it's the same continuation of the sidewalk across mine, so had mine not been there, I would have had to been doing some work. So I mean, me personally, the cement took care of that issue. And it hasn't moved, but I don't know.
100% of the homes I've owned with asphalt driveways, it has sunk. And so, you know, I don't doubt that it's a compaction issue, but if we can't make it happen, and I've had houses in a number of cities, it's the same story over and over again, and when you repave the driveway, you end up putting in the concrete apron. So,
Or have my neighbors just put the concrete apron in.
for me, I don't know why we don't require it right now. I think there's minimal cost difference between the asphalt and the concrete when they're already pouring the slab for the garage floor or the basement or whatever gets bundled together with that. But I don't see it as a big cost, and I think it resolves a problem that happens on almost every house. What I'm a little confused by is in the drawing you have up there, shows another apron down by the curb. Am I?
Yeah, so again, it's difficult to see on the screen, but so there's two aprons. There's one at the edge of the garage and then one at the edge of the street. And so, you know, this is kind of a two-part question, and the focus is more on the apron at the garage. There's many cities that do require a concrete apron on the boulevard, so essentially between the property line and the curb. So that would also be a question for the council. Currently, we do not require that. We do require that there be a hard surface. It doesn't have to be concrete, but you do have to have, whether it's concrete or asphalt or pavers or whatever it
Or
is.
something to break it up.
All right, I'm sorry?
Is that like a utilities thing, like easier to access, or
I don't know. It's in the code, I don't know, we don't have a whole lot of gravel driveways that are built, new gravel driveways that are built, so, I couldn't say what the history is on that.
But we require the hard surface, we're not requiring concrete.
Right.
Correct.
Currently, yeah,
Correct.
currently.
Now, this one I can see where it could add cost because they're gonna do it, they're not gonna necessarily do it when they do the pavement
As
or
in
the
how
pad
it's
and
set up.
the
Yeah.
sidewalk. Because they aren't necessarily gonna know a few things, so it seems like that would be done by itself, which means probably not cheap. Or a wash.
Yeah, I don't see the value
I don't either.
of this one.
Yeah, I'm struggling for the one at the end of the driveway, but up by the garage, I can see the driveway. I know a lot of my neighbors have had winter heave issues where the blacktop comes up higher than the garage, and then all the snow and water gets in, and when it melts into their garage.
I did, yeah.
You know, for me, that's like, if we're gonna build homes in Dayton, we should make sure they're here in 50 years. Hopefully, the garage aren't rotting away from the water getting, being pushed that way. So I get up by the garage. I'm trying to think of, as I walk down the streets, if I see any issues down by the street, that I'm like, oh, that's a huge issue, and I can't think of anything that
The only
seems
time
worthwhile.
I've seen it is when the cement doesn't meet the driveway pavement. You have a lip,
Oh,
and yeah, but, or the pavement sinks right where
yeah.
the concrete is. But
Well, the soil's probably compacted better at that end
It
of
should
the
be.
driveway, because you're not gonna hit the garage.
Plus you've had all those trucks driving up and down.
Yeah. So I'm okay with it by the garage. I don't know if we need it by the street. That seems a little bit
I
much.
think you got good direction, at least from the majority of the council, of pursue it towards the
Well,
house.
you
And
guys- So you don't like it, Scott, right?
I'm not, it's just more government. I mean, you're doing it because other cities are doing it. That's the only reason we're doing it. It doesn't solve the compaction issue.
Well, mine did. I would have had to replace, I would have had to do something.
But it's still hollow underneath, you said.
Oh, it is, but it doesn't
Yeah.
affect anything.
Yeah.
Well, but there again, it's like, well, why is it eroding underneath your concrete? Like, there's still a problem.
Because they didn't pack it.
They didn't compact it.
Well, then, water does its damage and it does its thing and it gets in places where it's not supposed to, and that, furthers the problem. So it's like, you put a concrete pad there, if you don't have any gutters to prevent the water from coming off that eave, like, it's just getting underneath all the other spots and doing the same thing. I just don't see the benefit here unless you're like actually addressing the problem, which I don't think the concrete apron is necessarily the problem.
If,
All right,
a question for Tom,
so you
if,
have most of the
if,
direction.
if it caves in,
Well, I got
an
3 and 2.
asphalt driveway caves in, I believe there's a warranty on the home for like 5 to 10 years that you're fixing it anyway.
The foundation is 10, that would only be a 1-year coverage. The driveway would only be a 1-year coverage under state law. I will tell you just a few other variables would be, so the excavator, how far he subcuts it, let's say he subcuts the hole really large and it's 8 feet out, your apron isn't gonna be that much. Did you have to raise the house out of the ground just for grade, whatever? And so now the whole front is 2 feet low. So it is, I think, a compaction issue. You can always, if it was to fail, you can always cut the tar and pour an apron in later. But there is a lot of people, like you, Mayor, that is true. It's hollow and it solves a problem. But I don't think it's going to 100% solve a problem. Is it better? I think it's probably better. But when we build, we require our excavators to use a jump and jack compactor. They cross there, they go across the step. So it's the same issue at the front step. Although a lot of times you'll tie the step maybe into the front stoop. That holds it, but they'll settle there too. And yes, does the house have gutters or not? There's just a whole array of things that I don't know if it would fix it one. I don't think you're going to eliminate all your problems with it.
So the direction that I have from the council is to go ahead and prepare an ordinance amendment that would require concrete aprons at the garage, not at the curb, and then don't do anything with garage size. Okay,
I think that's what I heard.
thank you.
All right, on to item I. Ditch stabilization.
Council has seen this project several times, as recent as last month, so I'll go through it quickly. It's just to present the quote results and recommendation going forward. So again, the project's located along the river, Dayton River Road, let's say in the northwesterly portion of the city as shown on the screen. The ravine does warrant improvements. Hennepin County did improve some of the ravine with a project completed in 2023. The adjacent property owners are in favor and in support of the project. Hennepin County grant, there was a Hennepin County grant secured for $32,000 towards it. Elm Creek Watershed has allotted $50,000 towards the project. Council had authorized the design on January 9th and authorized the solicitation of quotes at the March 26th meeting. Again, just a depiction showing what was improved by the county in 2023 and then the remainder of the ditch or the channel to be stabilized with this improvement. This is the preliminary cost estimate that was previously presented. It was $105,000 estimated total project cost with the breakdown as shown, with the funding below that with the 2 grants secured, leaving $23,000 to as the responsibility of the city was the estimate. Council's direction was to limit the project to $85,000 for a total project cost, leaving the city's portion at $3,000 towards the project. Quotes were received. 7 were solicited from contractors. 5 quotes were received as shown here. MNL is Minnesota Native Landscape. Their price was $61,510, which compares to the estimate of $70,000. So that did come in lower than estimated. Which, revising the cost estimate for the project, putting the bid amount in as the estimated construction. We did look at the engineering costs. We were tracking about $8,000 to $9,000 below where we expected to be at this point, so that has been adjusted as well. So that came down from I think it was about $32,000 down to $23,000. And then just talking with Zach and others on potential other indirect costs, they seem very limited, so we lowered that a little bit as well. I think we had like $2,600 on that before, so about half of that. Which, with the project funding, that does put the city's responsibility to about $4,500 for the project. So still a little bit above the $3,000, but much closer to where the landing point was desired to be. So our recommendation is to award the construction contract to Minnesota Native in the amount shown. And we would also recommend that the project not necessarily be limited in scope, to hold it to that $3,000 cost. It might work out that the project gets accomplished for that. But our thought is, let's not sacrifice on the quality of the project and not achieve the results desired by limiting costs. And just to mention, we did have an on-site meeting with the bidding contractors. At least some of them showed up. And there was concern that there was not enough rock quantity in there. We think we have enough in there. They thought we might not. So what I would hate to see is that we have to leave it even more short, if you will, of what we would need to achieve the stabilization like we thought. So, again, it would just be council direction that we would implement the project as needed to achieve the desired results. Now, that's not saying we're going to put threefold of the rock quantity in there and have excessive costs. We expect it to be near the estimated of the $61,000.
What did they believe would need to be added in?
They didn't give a number. They just said that seems like it would be a low amount. What would happen if we need to haul more rock in? And we shared that we've been limited with, our council has suggested that we limit the cost, so we would limit the amount of rock coming
If they
in.
need more rock, we can send to farmers' fields. They can go pick rocks. Probably free there.
So what you're saying is that their number of 61,510 may or may not have enough rock in it. Is that what you're saying?
We think there is enough in there. They think they might need more.
It's
they bid it with the amount you,
We put the
design it
quantity of
for.
rock.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we design, yeah,
But they're just saying your number's low.
yeah, they think more rock would be required.
But they didn't say how much. They didn't say twice as
They
much
didn't
or
say much.
4
They
times
just-
as much.
They
or-
just said, you know, we might run short on rock, how would that be handled?
Well, what
And
if-
like every contract, we pay by the bid amount. So if you estimate 50 yards of rock and they need 40, you pay 40. If they need 60, you discuss it and you pay 60 if it's
So
appropriate.
once this project is started and all of a sudden they say, oh, we're $5,000 short on rock, I mean,
What Jason did the engineering, we make him pay the $5,000.
Well, we can
Exactly.
stop it short. I mean, we can,
No, we don't do that.
Well,
No, we don't do that. I
No.
mean, that's what you're getting, in my opinion, that's what Stantec's getting paid for, is to say, this is how much rock we need.
and we
If-
did an
if
estimate
we're
based on
short-
the design.
If we're short, in my opinion, it comes off to 23.6,
That'd be interesting.
because you're the one that said we need this much. Not you, maybe, but
Expect a high estimate on the next project.
yeah, it's gonna come out of one end or the other. So-
Yeah, we're
So-
gonna pay for either way.
we might be doing a RFP
I
for
guess
another engineer.
I'm a little confused that we get, you know, a $20,000 change order. That's all my concern is that.
No, understood, and it's not expected it would be anything excessive. And we can still hold it. I mean, we can hold it to bid quantities, if that's desired. We can hold it to a dollar amount. It
But I
seems like
agree,
we'd
if they
say,
come-
don't bring more in and finish while you're here. We'll
Right.
consider
If they
it
say
later.
we need $5,000 more rock, it would seem sad not to just,
Right, if it's
I
close.
get what you're saying. I don't know how we provision for that, though. I don't,
As soon as we give a number, that's exactly how much more rock they're gonna
I,
need.
But, I mean, this is no different than any project. We
I
do
know.
this on every quantity on every project.
Yeah.
So it's-
If everything's dropped in price since we put this cap on, we should put caps on all the projects. Engineering comes down, the construction costs come down, it's all good.
That's what I was gonna suggest anyway, because we're still $1,500 high.
well,
Not that 1,500
That was
bucks is a
kind of
big
an
deal,
arbitrary
but
number.
it was
I-
kind
How
of-
much quantity of rock did you put in there?
I think there's 100 or no, there's more than that. 125 ton, no, $125 per, 300 ton maybe,
And
I
how,
think the answer was 284 ton.
round number.
and how much is it per ton?
125, I think, on the low bid. Per ton.
I think we approve it as is and take the change
Yep.
order if we have to have it.
Well, there wouldn't need to be a change order. You could process one, but it's not unexpected work. They're always estimated quantities. Some go over, some go
and
under.
it may end up being that the $1,300 indirect, we don't even need it, so I mean,
It's possible. I don't
so I
even
I
see
agree
those
with
bills,
David.
so I don't know what you have on indirect
I'll
costs.
make a motion that we approve it for the 86.5 and go with it.
And then limit the scope of work?
No.
well,
Okay. Well, you're not gonna get that.
yeah, I don't know how you.
I mean, you might, if the work comes in under that.
Well, then why even take a bid?
Do you think the extra material will be more than the contingency?
There's no contingency in these numbers.
Yeah,
Or
this
I don't know.
didn't happen.
Wasn't there a $1,300?
1,300.
1,300 on the
Oh,
last.
is it? I don't remember
It's
that.
on your slide.
Oh,
wasn't it?
other indirect costs.
That's
That
other
would be
indirect
for
costs.
Oh,
So
Yeah.
Publication, legal
That's-
fee
any
review.
publication,
Actual
legal
cost.
fees,
Gotcha.
and that's typically those indirect fees are
I guess-
Amy's team drafted the contract, and then any other public.
If you get to
fees.
the 300 ton and it looks short to you, I would assume you would come back to us and say, we need to cough up another 5 or something.
We could.
Okay.
That might cost a remobilization.
So I guess what I'm confused about is, are you asking for
I'm
An
not
open-
asking
an
for
open
any,
checkbook.
I'm not asking for any action.
okay,
We were given instruction to limit, do what we need to do to adjust total project cost below 85,000.
yep,
I'm just saying if we're looking like 87, 89,000, let's not stop the project. Let's finish it. Which is the same of every project ever done.
When we've had this come up in parks, that there's more feet of trail than what we expected or what was on the plan, and that's bid as a unit quantity. Didn't that come to us as a change order?
I haven't been involved in any of your park projects, I'm not sure. It could be. You can do change orders are only really required when, well, I shouldn't say only, but when we typically process them, is when it's new work.
Changing
You don't-
the scope
you
of the
don't-
work.
Yes, changing scope, exactly. These are always estimated quantities. It's always estimated, and each quantity has its own, or each work item has its own price. Rock has a price, seeding has a price, and you pay on how much is done. If they do less than estimated, you pay them less. If they do more than estimated, you typically pay them more. If you exceed a certain threshold, they have the right to come back and say, we want to renegotiate our unit price. So that's one scenario where a change order might be appropriate.
But you think we have
can
enough?
pay above or below the quantities. Like, for example, we almost never pay out the full bid amount. It just, I think it's probably only happened on 1 or 2 projects. Because there's an underrun of quantities. So you will award a bid based on, like the 61.5. They might not have to do half of the seeding. This might come in at 60,000. They might not have to take down as many trees as was anticipated. It might come in at 58,000. They might have to take down more. It comes in at 63,000. So they're always estimated quantities, but then when you get out there and do the work, you have to adjust on the fly. To accommodate
Those
the site.
changes, as they come up in the field, those are approved by you then?
Generally, yeah. We'll converse with staff when there's extra dollars involved, but when they're estimated quantities and as long as everything is tracking close, we usually just authorize in the field. Because it's not
I
a change
remember
of scope.
one change order that had quantity deltas, and I thought it was over by Opus or over in that thing, but, I mean, I get what you're saying.
Well, there's always changes in quantities. They
Right,
almost
but-
never come in at the planned. Some below, some above.
Yep.
But,
And these might have been significant, but I thought there was okay.
So, how do we, this may seem like a silly question, but how do we limit the range here?
Maybe the question is,
you
Jason, in your opinion, since you're the one who makes the call, what is within reason? You keep saying if the change is within reason and
Oh.
quantity. What is your threshold for within
I
reason?
don't know, I've never been asked this for a project, but I mean, because
He
this
just
is every
basically-
project, there's nothing unique about
Yeah.
this, it's just that.
Well, I think
you-
the difference is the
you
city
placed-
wasn't planning on paying anything for this. Like, I think
Wow.
we had, like, this is not like a,
Yeah, so if we
I think
double,
this is why it's different, to
if
be
we
clear.
double the $4,000, we've
Sure,
got up
that-
100%.
Yeah,
So-
Yeah.
that's when the Hennepin County grant was larger.
Oh.
So that was my confusion, or I led to that confusion, because the Hennepin grant was larger.
Okay.
They said, you're not awarded the project, we pulled back, they contacted us later, and we have a partial award for you. I mistakenly left it as fully funded, because it would have been fully funded had we got the full grant amount.
Yeah, I'm okay. Yeah. And you're right, and I think the question came up then too is, they bid a amount per quantity, not the quantity.
Yeah, they bid quantity under work, there's
Jason
probably
gave.
15 work items under this project.
I mean, typically though, when there's a unit cost, they bid the unit cost, not necessarily the number of units, or they bid it per what
We estimate.
you
quantity.
estimate it at.
We're gonna
They might
know,
give you different costs based on how many units you're getting though, too.
are we
Yep.
gonna know like 3 days before they, are at that stage where, hey, I need one more truckload of rock?
Well, we won't, because
We'll have a running tally, we'll have somebody checking in on site, and we'll have
I
an idea
certainly don't
if
wanna
we're
not
tracking
do the project for
higher.
$1,000 if that's what it ends up being, but, I mean, you just basically said,
And
maybe
that's-
the tree trimming comes in $1,000 less, and we need more rock. So, personally, I think we can go with the 86.5 and just find out where we are. Certainly, if you give them 90,000, they're gonna take 90,000.
Well, I think
Well, we're not paying them 90,000 unless they do 90,000 in work. I mean, we only pay
I
on
think they're
work
talking, I
we
think
do.
Scott, I think Councilman Slavi's looking at the total project, not,
Yeah.
Well,
Totally.
right, but, I mean, everybody's only paid for the work completed, including us. I mean,
And they won't necessarily know unless they watch the meeting that we approved 90. I don't know. Do you have any?
so, yeah.
Well,
there's just,
I want to go
I don't know if
ahead.
it
I
matters,
wanna-
but there
I
doesn't
wanna
need to
do
be a
what needs
dollar
to be
amount.
done. I just
Okay.
don't
Either.
want a blank check on any part of it without some level of oversight. And
So, yeah, so that would be my recommendation, is if you're looking to do some sort of like, not open checkbook, but basically, and finish the project if it's minimal dollars, right? So you could award the contract again for 61,510 and then give authorization to either myself or Marty or, whoever you feel comfortable with, of a certain dollar amount above that, you're able to say, okay, go ahead and just do the project, do it right, or all the way with all the rock quantities. Because if it's more rock than we need, but then we have less tree trimming, it's not gonna make any difference.
It
to-
averages
to do
out.
it. Correct. And again, staff would use their best judgment to say, okay, does it work or not?
Yeah, I'm okay with
The
that.
money's small, this one, I'm fine with it, the staff just figure it out.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll make a
To get
motion
the-
to approve the project. Let's do it that way.
All right, that would be,
I'll second it.
any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. All right.
You're out of the hot seat, Jason.
Item J.
Off the record, I like when he's on the hot seat. Back on the record.
Okay, this is an interim use permit for Lawn Smart located at 17480 117th Avenue North. And just so I don't forget that this is a public hearing.
Yep.
The applicant, Mike Groves, is requesting an interim use permit for a home business, or home extended business. There's two parts to this. One is Lawn Smart is a commercial lawn care and snow removal business. The second part is seasonal and year-round outdoor storage. Specific to the lawn care business, the majority of the business is located, it's hard to see here, but is in this exterior or this accessory building. There's some outdoor storage that's along the east property line. There's mostly snow plows and skid steer attachments. There's a carport that has storage for lawnmowers. And then there's also, it doesn't show up on the aerial photo, but there's a shipping container that's used for salt storage. The business has 4 full-time employees and up to 12 seasonal employees. So within the code for a home extended business, the intent is that there not be more than 2 employees other than members of the household. And there's a limited amount of outdoor storage. Within the code, it does allow the council to approve beyond what is in the code. So the code says you can do X, Y, Z. The council can say, you can do X, Y, Z, but in this case, you can do more than that. So in this case, that is what the applicant has requested, is to have more than 2 employees. Specific to this section of the business, the Plan Commission did recommend approval of it for up to 15 employees. And then for employee parking to be in the backyard behind the shop. Specific to the second part of this business for the outdoor storage, aerial photo is probably better than that. As you can see, there's parking for approximately 20 vehicles. This is whether it's seasonal or year-round storage. You cannot see it from the road. I don't believe you can see it well from, or probably not at all, from the neighboring properties. There is a heavy tree line that goes around the area that's used as outdoor storage. Again, as a home extended business, the intent is that the business is conducted in one accessory building with minimal outdoor storage. This does exceed that. So again, the Planning Commission did recommend approval for it. The applicant is here to answer any questions. One thing I would note, in the resolution does have an error on it. So one of the conditions of approval is that there be a limit to the days and hours of operation. I had that written in my notes, but that was not part of the motion that the Planning Commission made. So I would ask that recommend that if the council wants to approve that would be removed. Unless you wanted to add it, but it did not come from the Planning Commission.
Who wants to go first?
Do you want to hold the public hearing first, or what do you want to do?
Well, we can do it.
Do you,
first,
either whatever you
right?
want to do. Yep. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
I'll open a public hearing for Resolution 19, 2024. Is anybody here for the public hearing? Come on forward. Name and address.
Name is Mike Groves. Address is 17480 117th Avenue North, Dayton, Minnesota.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for the applicant?
I have a couple questions. What year did you buy the property?
I believe in 2019.
And what was in the storage area before it was storage area?
Just trees.
How many trees did you take out?
75, 80, maybe.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I guess I
Go ahead.
have a couple. My understanding from listening to the planning commission meeting is that you've got some fuel storage on site.
We do.
That's a 500-gallon tank or a couple 500-gallon?
There's two 500-gallon tanks, yes.
Okay. And are those tanks registered with the county?
I believe they're registered through Beaudry Oil, who provides us with our fuel. But I guess I can't say for sure.
Okay, so one of the requirements around those kind of above-ground tanks is that there's secondary containment for fuel spills.
Sure.
Does that exist today?
No, it does not.
Okay, and, I don't know whether for your business it would be required or not, but for a lot of operations, there's a need for a hazardous waste permit. And has that been explored by you?
It has not.
Okay. So those are concerns of mine that, that if you have a spill, it's not going to be able to be properly contained because of that requirement. And tanks 500 gallons and larger for commercial purposes need to be registered with the county and the MPCA. The county does the enforcement of MPCA rules along with their additional requirements that the county has. So that's something that would have to be taken care of. It looks to me like I guess we don't have anything exact. I counted just from looking at that drawing that you've probably got room for about 25 trailers or boats or cars.
Roughly.
Or whatever, and the storage by ordinance would be limited to 0.92 acres because of your lot size. So I don't know how that fits in. I'm not that cool with the county map to be able to measure things accurately. But
I can show you how.
thank you.
Pretty slick.
So, I don't know if you're exceeding that or not, but I guess I would like to see the storage limited to what the ordinance requires or the IUP requires, and not exceeding that, and maybe you don't. I just don't have a way to judge that, I guess.
John, do you happen to know this? Or do you happen to know that?
I'm sure if I measured it 10 times, I'd come up with 10 answers, but I estimated an acre and a half, whereas it's about an acre that you could have. Acre and a quarter, I'm sorry. So I mean, it might be if, just removing a couple of stalls might do it. So
Yeah.
So how much can you have per ordinance? Sorry,
it's 20% of the lot.
0.92.
For
So
the
if I,
side lot.
yeah, for the whole lot. So essentially, if I do, I'm gonna do all your trees just because that's all the area and space. It's roughly 0.47 of an acre for that square area in the tree area.
Okay, there's plus the outdoor storage for the lawn care business.
Yep, I did not count that. I just counted the
The trailers.
trailer space area.
And to me, it seems like a lot of business to pack into that size area, but then I look at the area around you. Neighbor to the north has probably got more trailers than that on the back of their lot.
Probably has
I don't
about
know- I don't know
triple.
if that's a business or if that's just his own junk, but, it's kind of like what's in the neighborhood. As you mentioned, you've got industrial properties across the street, and, I mourn the loss of the trees there, but if we're gonna come along in 20 years and put a road through there, they're going anyway, so, I don't know. it's a loss either way. It's just happened sooner than maybe it needed to, but, you know, do your long-term plans include, you know, moving to a commercial site? Or is this kind of the plan that you want to run with indefinitely?
I mean, we bought the property with the intent of running the business out of it. I guess I haven't given consideration of moving to a commercial site. Long term, I mean, we could have a door knock tomorrow. Guy wants to buy us out. I mean, we don't. Who knows? I feel like it's going to be. I mean, the building across the street's vacant. So to me, before I get bought out, that building needs to be, you know, full or have someone in it. So I mean, long term, we probably won't be there because we'll get either bought out or pushed out. How long that's going to be, I guess none of us know.
This was the plan when you bought the property and moved in, and were you unaware of the requirement for an IUP for this?
Yeah, I was not aware.
When you say you're not aware, you didn't, plus you didn't call. I mean, to me, there's so many things that are being violated here that, I mean, clearly nobody did any homework on any of the ordinances.
What, right, but I mean, what I don't know, I don't know.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, well, you don't know, you can ask, I
Yeah.
think is what Scott's getting at.
Yeah.
Like, to
Yeah.
say I don't know is one thing, but to say, I don't know, but I'm gonna find out is a different answer. And so,
A lot of times, though, people don't know that they have, that there is a question to ask.
yeah, that's fine, I get
So-
that, yeah.
I get that.
I'm kind of with Scott on this one where,
To me, having two 500-gallon gas tanks sitting there with nothing, I mean, we didn't call nobody, and I'm just gonna put 1,000 gallons of fuel here and call it good. I'm on the side that I would deny this.
I'm actually with Scott on this one. Yeah, I know, it very rarely happens, but I actually agree with Scott on this one, that I don't think this is the right place for this. I mean, the fuel that close in a residential area doesn't make sense. I get it's right across the street from non-residential, but you're right next to residential as well, so I think it goes both ways. I think, you know, we gotta, as a city, start to mature to the point where we're running commercial businesses in commercial zones and we're having homes in residential areas, and so, you know, we allow small businesses of 2 employees, and I'm okay with that. You've got lawn care folks right down the street from you, and I know you do, and they're in the correctly zoned space for that. And so part of me wonders if by allowing you to do it in residential space, they kind of get the short end of the stick, right? Because they're doing the same business you're doing, but you pay less in taxes, so your overhead costs are less. So as a default, we're hurting that business by allowing your business to operate here. So I'm trying to be fair across everyone. I know this is not what you want to hear, nor do I want to be the person that has to say it, but yeah, I'm trying to be equal to our businesses and our residents, and just, you know, try to be consistent across the board. And so, yeah, I'm with Scott on this one.
Well, does anybody else have any questions for the applicant?
Again, another thought around it, and, you know, I have to say, they don't love this. Like I said, I think you're packing a lot of business into a small area, but, you know, we've got home-based businesses
Yep.
all over Dayton, and, you know, I don't know if that's part of our rural feel or what, you know, or we only
I
like
think
good
we should have
things
more
when we
home-based
say that, but,
businesses.
you know, that's a lot of people in Dayton. I mean, you carry that to an extreme. Farms are home-based businesses, and, you know, we don't discourage that. You know, this, to me, you know, is growing to a point where you really ought to be looking for, you know, a properly zoned place. But we do allow home-based businesses through that IUP process. And, you know, it's frustrating that you weren't here in 2019, you know, to get the permit before you went into operation, or maybe even before you bought, to, you know, to have that question answered. You know, I'm reluctant to put you out of business over this, I guess is what it comes down to.
Maybe I'll edit my motion. I would give him 1 year. I think that's fair. I don't want to put him out of
Well,
business.
their
That's not,
IUP is
is for 5 years.
We can set the term, right?
You can set.
You can.
Yeah, so that gives him 1 year to figure out what he's gonna do and how he's gonna do it, and I don't wanna shut him down tomorrow, that's not what I want either, but I think a year is more than enough time to figure out where you're gonna run your business out of. Maybe Scott, you run a business, you tell me, is a year enough time to figure out and move and get all that, how long did it take you when you moved?
4 months.
Okay, so, well, 1 year IUP would be enough for him to get that done, right?
Yeah.
That would be my guess, middle ground on the matters. I would vote no on anything that's more than 1 year.
I mean, I don't know what's available in Dayton, but I'm sure there's a building, there's
Aren't there
stuff
commercial
available.
spots right over here that are open? No?
I don't think so. I mean, for me, the biggest thing here is nothing was checked in before we moved to this lot, and I'm gonna do what I wanna do, and all of a sudden, this is where we are. So, and, I mean, all the different things here that are being, taken advantage of.
Question
I
for
mean,
the
you can't
council.
even clean them up.
There are two parts of this business. So you have lawn care and outdoor storage. So is the opposition for both businesses?
And I also want to make sure we're still in a public hearing time, so
I know,
we
that's
close
why,
that too,
yeah.
if we need to.
So if we're
Done with the public
done
hearing.
with questions, we could maybe see if there's anybody else in the audience. Is there anybody else that wants to come forward on this? Is there anybody online?
If the person online is wanting to speak in the public hearing, if you just want to use the raise your hand function,
Otherwise, then we can close the hearing.
I think you can close the hearing.
Okay, well, I will close the hearing. I'm inclined to approve it with the 5-year IUP. It's an IUP. I would want to limit what we're seeing, or what, maybe that space to what David mentioned. And the planning commission, I think, wanted a limit of 15. That's where I'm at. So I don't know, are you okay with the 5, or you want 1 year IUP?
I'm okay with the 5, but I think that the other requirements of the IUP in terms of, allowable storage and so on, those need to be followed. And also, I mean, I don't know that we need to include this because it's already law, but those tanks and things, those need to be licensed or registered and properly contained to prevent the chance of a spill there. That benefits all of us. And that's the problem, I think, with, sort of unregulated doing what you want on your property is that nobody's, you're unaware that those are requirements. I get that. There's a lot of things I don't know either. But if you've got the proper permit in place, then, then we're going to hold you to doing the things that are required by it. So I don't know where I'm going. If we need to include the things around the hazardous waste and the fuel storage in the IUP, then I would want to do that.
Okay. Yeah, Mayor and council members, I would recommend including anything you want to make sure gets enforced in the IUP, whether it's by other law or not, just to ensure that we can follow up with the applicant with the proper procedures. So if you want anything included, make sure it's included in the IUP.
Yeah, so that's where I'm at on it.
Just want to clarify, you both are wanting to approve the 5-year with everything that's allowed there,
Travis?
except for limiting the
It's up to
travel,
you.
the trailer.
It's up to me.
I mean,
Yeah.
we can go with,
What's
I'd
the
be fine
requirement,
making-
Chief, what's the requirement on a 500-gallon fuel tank? That has no approval or nothing.
I don't know if that falls in fire.
Mayor
or-
and members of council, I guess I'd look at it from fire code perspective, no different in that capacity
Right.
where it's going to circle back to MPCA, to Councilman Fashant's perspective. And we get into an issue of fuel leaking, then it turns into a reportable quantity to the state duty officer and many other things with MPCA. So I completely agree with what Minister Dowd had said, is put in what the requirements you believe need to be in there. No different than for any other property you would have, outlawing state fire code and those such things.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I'm okay with the 5-year, but to David's point though, that requires a hazmat analysis for the storages that you have, a spill prevention plan, and then out of that might be HAZWOP or training too for how to operate within, the chemicals that you bring on your site. Yeah, there has to be some, and again, that's going to be an MPCA call or a DNR, I think, whatever does the spill prevention, whatever avenue that is. But yeah, that should be followed because is that, I'm taking a wild guess, but is that one container like used oil or something like that?
It's
sitting out
just
there?
diesel and unleaded fuel.
Okay, and then it has to have the proper containers in it as well, like storage in the proper containers. Yeah, I wanna see a business work in Dayton. I don't wanna have, but with that comes limitations too, so.
And there's already a requirement, so I thought in the IUP that the storage container be,
Yes, the city code does not allow
Right.
storage containers as permanent storage. Carports are intended to be for vehicles, not storage items.
Right.
Do we, that isn't anything contingent on where I'm feeling about this, but I didn't think when we approved that carport thing that we put any restrictions on what you could store under it. Because it seemed silly to me at the time that you can't stick your lawnmower and your snow blower under it, then they just sit out in the yard.
I think we beat that back, that
Yeah,
part.
that's what I thought.
Yeah,
Okay, I can take a look again.
yeah, because
Yeah.
that did come up that we could only store cars at a carport. I'm like,
Yeah, I thought we took that off.
yeah, I think we did.
Just sunscreen outside.
If we didn't, we should. Okay, well, sounds like,
Do you have clear direction, John? I just want to make sure you have clear
I
direction.
don't have, there's not a motion.
yeah,
yet.
we need a motion.
Okay.
So I guess I'll make the motion to approve the IUP for 5 years with the conditions that we've talked about, that the storage needs to match the, what's allowed in the ordinance. And,
If I could just clarify, so I've got 3 items based on conversation. So the first one is require registration of the fuel tanks with the MPCA, obtain I'm calling it a hazardous waste generators license if required, and then a maximum of 20% of the lot can be outdoor storage.
that's correct. That's my motion.
In a second,
I'll second.
any more discussion?
Mayor, members of council, if I may, I would just suggest being very broad in your, don't be very specific as far as, what did you say, John, as far as, I can't remember, just be very broad in your statements as it regards to regulations. So maybe you're just saying anything related to fuel is the MPCA, whatever those rules and regulations are. Don't narrow it down so specific, if that makes sense.
So fuel and chemical storage and
So following all
hazardous waste generating.
all MPCA requirements, essentially,
Yep.
instead of saying they just register it, now
Oh, I
they
see.
register it and then they don't have,
Sure.
what's the follow-up for it? So if we say that has to meet all MPCA requirements, now we have, okay, it's gotta meet all MPCA requirements the whole time. So that's, that would be I think that's what Chief Hendrickson is saying. There's-
So I'll amend my
And
So
then-
is-
motion to say comply with all MPCA and Hennepin County requirements
There you go.
around
Yeah.
and then
fuel
one-
storage and waste.
One question for the motioner. So I mentioned earlier striking the requirement limiting the days and hours of operation. Are you okay with
Striking that, yes.
striking that? Okay.
And are we doing anything about the tree, not adequate tree screening? The number of employees, the number of trucks, container storage?
Didn't it come up
for
in the
salt?
planning commission about adding screening on the east side because technically all the screening's on the other property and not on this property? Was that part of the,
Yes.
is that part of
Yes,
the motion already?
It's not part of the motion.
It's not part of them, that's what I'm
Okay.
asking. We don't have any of
And I
that
thought they
included in
had,
it.
there was discussion about that. When did they,
The intent, so if I
they're
could-
screening, it's on the other property.
Correct. So if I
Right.
could suggest an amendment to the motion of maximum 20% of outdoor storage that is adequately screened from the adjacent neighbors.
Sure.
And then it'd be up to the property owner how they want to do that, whether it's a fence or trees.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay. Any more discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no.
No.
Scott, you were a no, correct?
Yeah.
Passes 3-2.
Thank you.
And then we have Event Center, public hearing.
Okay. And again, so I don't forget that this is also a public hearing. So this is an interim use permit for an event center for Dean's Pumpkins located at 17270 125th Avenue. So just geographically, I know the council knows where this is. It's the sharp corner where 125th and East French Lake Road can't say intersect, but it's a sharp bend in the road. The Deans own, I want to say it's about 600 acres or so. The event center covers
Lost track.
The event center covers 6 parcels totaling about 300 acres. As a council is where we've asked businesses that are operating an event center to come in and apply for an IEP for an event center. And the first was Fisher Farms last year, and now it's Dean's Pumpkins. So we've asked the event centers to clarify every type of event they could possibly imagine being held on the property, whether they actually do it or not. And so the list on the screen here is everything that Dean's has come up with, which, just for those that can't, those that might be watching this and can't read the screen, is corn maze, hay rides, sleigh rides, haunted attractions, concerts, ice castles, Christmas tree sales, birthday parties, corn pits, inflatables, weddings and receptions, Easter activities, and motocross. And specific to motocross, it's more of a motocross practice facility, not in motocross.
Racing
but I think
venue
it's
type of
not
thing,
like a
yeah.
NASCAR type of
Yeah.
track is the intent. So, again, the aerial photo is kind of a focus. Most, generally speaking, parking is going to be on the south side of the road here. Most events will occur around the farmstead. The pumpkin patch will shift year to year. The motocross is located kind of in the northwest corner of the property. And again, to put an emphasis on on the location, this is in the middle. I don't want to say the middle of nowhere because it's the middle of Dayton. Dayton is somewhere, but homes are far away. The Deans own the neighboring homes that are located here as well as off the picture here. The closest neighbor is down off the screen here over 1,000 feet away. So there's some distance. So again, what's on the screen, and I know that this isn't very legible from the distance, is the ordinance on event centers. The only item that I guess I want to bring up to the council is that the event center ordinance does require parking on an improved surface, so gravel as an example of an improved surface. In this case, the parking that's been used has been in a field. The idea, and this is my interpretation, is when you're parking on a field, you can still produce hay on it. It's still a producible crop here. If it's gravel, it's just a gravel parking lot. There's nothing else that can happen with it. We did reach out to other communities that have similarly sized event centers, so not necessarily exactly what the Pick Your Own Pumpkins, but more so with the Halloween events. And so there's a number of, I'll say, resolutions or conditions of approval that are in the packet. Probably the biggest thing is just controlling crowds. So the Pick Your Own Pumpkins, I guess when I've seen there's hundreds of cars or hundreds of people that are out there. When things are good, it's easy to control. When you have whether it's inclement weather or something else going on, it's a little bit more difficult. So one of the conditions of approval is that before Deans can start operation is that we do want them to submit an emergency operations plan of how they would handle certain types of events. So that plan would be reviewed by our staff, and I'm going to say would be accepted by the fire chief and police chief as well as the building official before the business goes into operation for the season. That's my short summary.
So you have a footnote in here that back in 2000 they were concerned about commercial uses on ag preserve land.
Yes, and I'm going to lean on Leo for the history of that. So from my understanding is the property owner did apply for, I believe it was a conditional use permit for the motocross.
Yeah.
There were certain limitations with using land that was designated agricultural preserve for a non-agricultural use. And so the item was tabled and then expired, or I'm not sure if it expired, but
Still tabled today.
I believe it was withdrawn. So yeah.
Is it still ag preserve there? No. Okay, then we're done. All right.
It does bring me to a question, though, because in looking at like ERC, which I realize this is not, or ERX, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is not, but that was a conditional use permit that they got from Elk River for that. And in our guide here under this ordinance, I guess what I'm not clear on is we've got a section there, or a checkbox for commercial recreation. And what does that cover?
Whatever you would like it to cover. So, commercial I'm not sure if we have a definition for commercial recreation. It's fairly broad. I mean,
Yeah. I'm just wondering, does that fit under the IUP that we're talking about, the bike stuff, and or does it need to be a CUP?
So the application is for the event center, which can be all encompassing. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. So like using the property for the motocross, it's an event. You could also call it a commercial recreational, similar to the go-kart track that's in Dayton. I think the idea as an interim use permit is it is a temporary use, whereas in this case the Plan Commission's recommendation was a 30-year temporary use. I guess from my experience, a conditional use permit is more appropriate when there's an investment in a permanent structure. So for the example would be is you'd have a mortgage company that would not give a loan for something that they don't have a guarantee that's not going to be there next year or 5 years from now. With the interim use permit, similarly, I guess that might be tied into the use of the building for the event center, but much of this is based on the use of the land. So if this was not a pumpkin patch, I don't know if there'd be as much of a draw to this location.
Yeah, and it almost doesn't matter to me. I just don't want us to be crosswise with our own requirements.
This is a very
around this.
broad permit that, when you think of all the things that could operate here, we're calling it an event center, but it's very broad.
Okay, so if that's not necessary under that definition, then I don't need to add to the paperwork on it. But the other question I had, I lost my page. Oops, there we go. So under staff recommendations, it says the resolution includes allowing public safety officials to close operations immediately if warranted. What do we define as warranted?
It's really going to be up to the discretion of whoever's on site for public safety. And I think a lot of it is just based on the controlling of people. The people that are there. So I don't know if there's...
Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, it would be more like if you had a large fight. Anything like that, it would give us the authority to shut the operation down to control the situation and get everybody out of there. Or a large incident such as an active shooter or anything like that, we'd have the authority to shut the business down for the night or the weekend to investigate what took place.
All right, thank you.
Any questions for the applicant? Otherwise, we can open the public meeting. Let's do that. I'll open the public hearing for Resolution 2024. Anybody here for this public meeting? Anybody online?
So if you're online to speak on the public hearing, if you use the raise your hand function, I think we're good.
All right, we will close the public meeting. I have no problems with it.
I'm going to make a motion that we approve this for the 10-year IUP.
Only 10?
Yeah. We could just redo it 10 years from now.
Is it another permit process that he has to go through, another payment that has come out, or?
I would.
I mean, what's the reason staff wants it to be 10 years?
Sorry, say that again? Why would we want it to be 10 years?
Yeah.
So the planning commission recommended 30
30.
years, correct?
Yeah.
And I don't think staff has a
What it says right
concern
there,
or
staff
anything.
recommends.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so staff's, in the
Oh, I think
staff
it's
report, the
10-year
staff's
planning.
recommendation was for 10 years, and the intent there is that the best plans that we can come up with are only good for 10 years. But it is, you know, I'm gonna say it's somewhat of an arbitrary, if there's a problem, we can always bring it back.
Yeah.
I'm good with the 30.
Sorry, that was right.
Yeah, I mean,
Sorry, I
it's-
misheard your question.
I'll change it.
Yeah.
I'll approve it as is.
All
I'll
right,
second.
So it's 30 years, correct? Or it's-
Yep.
30 years.
that was the
30 years.
recommendation.
Okay.
And Matt, you had
Yes, sir.
any more discussion?
Mayor and members of council.
Yeah.
I just want to point out that, again, I like the IEP to indicate that all state fire codes need to be referenced or allowed, because as everything that's listed, if we go from a wedding to serving alcohol and food, we move from an A1 to, or from an A3 to an A2 to an A1, which then requires different fire codes as it relates to fire sprinklers inside the event center and so forth. So I just want to make sure that that is outlined. I'm fine with everything. Dean's been great to work with. I just want to make sure, as whatever they decide to do later on, that we have that provision in there that references state fire code.
I agree.
You want to amend the motion, or, because that's, I don't know if it's in there right now, that's why I'm asking.
I would we have item 2, which is prior to indoor operations, buildings shall be made compliant with building, fire, and health codes. Each building used for the event center shall be posted with its maximum capacity and shall not exceed this capacity. And
So we're good.
should
You
say
good with that language?
occupancy rather than
Okay, all right.
capacity.
Okay. Sorry.
No.
Never mind.
All right.
Keep going.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. More discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. With that, 10 minutes off. Who did that?
That was me.
Thanks, guys.
That means
Thank
we're
you.
done.
And Tom, feel
Nope.
free to show up
Closed session.
at any one of our council meetings.
I know the consent, I didn't know it might be this long.
Thanks, y'all.
Okay, now we need to clear the
Clear the room and close
clear the
session.
room.
Yep.
And so now,
You guys want to take a 5-minute recess for council? Or do you
Yeah,
guys
we'll
want to
need
just
a
power
bathroom
through?
break, yeah.
okay, let's take a little recess. then.
Okay, 5-minute
5
recess.
minutes.
Thank you.
Guys,
I know, but-
So we are back from recess, and we are going to go into closed session pursuant to Minnesota statute section 30D05 subdivision 3B for a confidential discussion with legal counsel regarding litigation. I need a motion and a second.
I'll motion.
Second.
We got
I
for a
will
second.
Say.
Give it to Dave.
Dave. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. 5-0. We are now in closed session. So we are back from our closed session, and if there are no objections, we will be adjourned. All right, we're adjourned. Boom.